What's up, Duval? It's your favorite Jag, Bucky Brooks, and this is Bleav in Jaguars, a podcast dedicated to our favorite team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And today, look, we've hit the quarter pole. Things haven't gone like we thought they would, but we still have an opportunity to do a deep dive in the team, talk about what went wrong the first quarter of the season, how the Jaguars got here, how they can dig themselves out of the hole to hopefully salvage the season, and maybe we can sneak our way into the postseason. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the offense, the defense, talk about where we go. But first, let's talk about the game against the Houston Texans on Sunday. Jaguars come up a little short. They lose 24-20 to the Houston Texans on the road. It was a game in which, look, I felt like that Doug Peterson and the coaching staff got the game to be played the way that they wanted it to play. But unfortunately, it just didn't work out for the team. And when I look at the game, I felt like, look, man, the team did exactly what they wanted in terms of, the offensive approach, the defensive approach, and those things. They want to play complementary ball. They wanted to, from a defensive standpoint, eliminate the big plays, not have the deep ball be a factor. They wanted to make sure they didn't have any communication issues that resulted in bust. And so they were able to do that. If you look at the way the team played it out, second half of the game, they had a sequence where they had 5 straight punts they forced from the Texans offense. Even though C.J. Stroud threw for well over 300 yards, Nico Collins had a big day. It was all within the context of bend but don't break, play really good in the red zone, and eventually they were banking on the Texans imploding. We actually saw that happen, and we saw the Jaguars really blow a great opportunity to knock off the division leader, to knock off a team that you're going to have to face again when it comes to the postseason, whether it's winning the division or earning one of those final berths in the postseason. And so this was a missed opportunity for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Defense played well enough to win. You had some solid performances, namely Ventrell Miller was outstanding all over the field, making plays. You had the young guys. Monteric Brown continues to be, I would say, a shining spot, a bright light in look a season that hasn't been great by any metric. But Monteric Brown, some of the young guys have played really well. You feel good about those guys going forward. But Ventrell Miller was the star of the day because he was all over the place. I love his leadership. I can tell you, like a little behind the curtain at halftime, he was the main one imploring guys to, hey, we got to get this going. We got to get off the field on money down. We got to find a way to win on third down. If I had to point to an area that was a little disappointing from the defense, I would say it was third down situations. Not being able to get off the field on third and long. Some of that was due to like shoddy tackling. Some of that was due to the inability to get after the passer with just a 4-man rush. Whatever it was, too often the Texans were able to convert some of these long yardage situations that should have been automatic get off the field scenarios. And for the Jaguars, Ryan Nielsen, you want to go back to the drawing board. You want to make sure that the team doesn't lose confidence, because if they do want to play this bend but don't break style, it can work for them while mixing in some man-to-man. Look, I'll say this. At halftime, they really did a good job of getting in their bag. They were rocked early, but they settled down. They mixed a man and zone. And by all accounts, I would say it was a really good defensive game plan. Offensively, it was another game plan designed to help a team that was lacking a little confidence kind of get into rhythm. And when you have a team that is lacking confidence, there are a few things that you want to do to help them get back on track. Number one thing, which is quarterback centric, is you want to play the hits. When I say play the hits, what I mean is you want to do the things that make the quarterback the most comfortable. So you sit down with the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, you try to figure out what plays, what concepts really work for him. What does he like? What doesn't he like? Let's make sure we remove anything that he doesn't like in the game plan and give him a game plan that just features his favorite concepts, his favorite things. When I look at Trevor Lawrence, the things to me that he does exceptionally well: screens, quicks, RPOs, operating at a tempo that allows him to get to the line, not overthink everything, but to get going. When they do those things, it works out really well. And we saw, particularly early in the game, he got off to a fast start because they did some things that were really within his wheelhouse, and he was very comfortable doing it. When I go back and look at Trevor, I think about how Trevor played at Clemson. I always want to make the pro game as close to the college game because he enjoyed so much success at Clemson. I want to put him in his comfort zone, particularly when the team is struggling and even he is struggling. I want to go back and put on those old comfortable shoes and allow him to feel good about himself and his game. I felt like Doug Peterson and Press Taylor did that. They played the hits. They set him up for success early. He missed some deep shots, but early in the game, screens, quicks, RPOs, it worked. The other part of the game plan that was obviously a point of emphasis, feed the pigs. When you think about your team, you hear Doug talk about players, not plays. Get the ball to the best players. Don't worry about the fancy plays that you enjoy. Part of the reason why you want to get it to your best players is because the best players ultimately have the biggest impact on the game. Your job as a coach is to evaluate all the personnel that you have and then narrow the focus in terms of who deserves to have the ball, who are the players that should have the biggest impact on the game. When you go back and you look at this game, in the passing game, it was really obvious from the jump. This was a Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas Jr. game. The ball was going to number 13 and the ball was going to number 7. Everybody else, you got to get it on your own. But when you go and you look at the targets, Christian Kirk, 12 targets on the day. Brian Thomas Jr., 9 targets on the day. Outside of those guys, no one else had more than 3 targets. This was intentional. It was by design. It was a concerted effort to make sure that the best players touched the ball early and often. They were integral parts of the game plan, and you allowed those guys to kind of set the table for the rest of the offense. When it comes to the running game, look, another one that I would say was very intentional and by design. You saw Travis Etienne play and get the bulk of the touches. I think he had 12 carries, 11 to 12 carries on the day. But Tank Bigsby is one that is really kind of climbing up the ladder when it comes to the pecking order of importance. When I looked at the game early on the sideline, I was like, man, it's funny. Like they are switching in and out running backs, but they have very specific formations and packages for different guys. Tank Bigsby was on the field early. He was running, he was rumbling, had his thing going. We saw later in the second half, he pops out for a 58-yard run. That man, he was so close to scoring. Just has to keep his feet in bounds. And those inches where he goes out of bounds, that probably is the deciding factor between whether the Jaguars win or lose, because they get down to the 4, they first and goal, and they're unable to punch it in. And really, that was an opportunity for the Jaguars to blow the doors off. They didn't cash in. But enough about that. Gained 158 rushing yards. The duo, Bigsby and Etienne, looked good. They were crushing it. They had an opportunity to really win the game because they played the hits and they fed the pigs. Now, when we talk about the game plan being good, look, it was good. Like I would say, the offensive line played well. They held him. Trevor got sacked a couple times, but nothing where he was under duress. It was a very, I would say, solid game plan that allowed the offense the opportunity to play really well. Here's the issue that you have with the Jags right now. It comes down to finishing on offense. This team had an opportunity to finish off this game with what they thought was going to be their best unit, the offense on the field in the fourth quarter. And 3 times in the fourth quarter, the offense didn't get it done. First, we talk about 4th and goal at the 1-yard line, the beginning of the quarter. You have an opportunity to go up by 10 points at that moment. 4th and goal, you empty formation out, you run a quarterback draw. Trevor Lawrence is nailed at the 1-yard line. We can dispute whether the play call was right or not. The opportunity or the decision to go for it was right. The play and the execution, that was wrong. And, as a coach, you just have to wear that. Didn't go their way. But even outside of that, after kind of messing up a situation that could have really not put the game on ice, but could have given you that separation that you were looking for, you had 2 opportunities with 8 minutes left in the game where the offense has the ball and has a chance to put the game away. In football terms, we talk about 4-minute offense. Nickname, we talk about turtle offense, meaning slow the game down, drain the clock, impose your will on the opponent, and walk out of the stadium with a dub. Had the ball with 8 minutes left, 3-point lead. The Jaguars couldn't get it done. Now let's go back. So in those 2 possessions under 8 minutes, the Jaguars ran a total of 9 plays. And during those sequences, the bulk of those plays were passing plays. Trevor Lawrence goes 1 for 5, 10 yards. And, we don't put the blame on anybody because it's a team effort in those things. But here's the reality of the situation when it comes to playing in the National Football League. Your best player, particularly your quarterback, has to seal the deal. To go 1 for 5 for 10 yards, it's not sealing the deal the way that you would expect a high-end quarterback to be able to seal it. He can learn from it. He can grow from it. But at the end of the day, when your team is in a position to win the game, first, 4th and goal at the 1-yard line. Second, 2 possessions under the final 8 minutes where you just need 4 first downs total to win the game. At some point, your franchise quarterback has to find a way to help you either get in the end zone or move the chains. Look, fair or not, that's the expectation. And that is always going to be the expectation when it comes to the quarterback. He has to own it. Doug Peterson, Press Taylor have to own it. They have to look and see, did they give them the best plays to be able to do it? Or was it user error? The quarterback just didn't figure it out. Whatever it is, this game came down to finish and the Jaguars' inability to finish. They didn't finish the game in the 4th quarter, and that is why they lost their 4th game in a row. Couldn't get it done. We can talk about they had to punt, and then, C.J. Stroud brought him back, and Nico Collins running free over the middle, yada, 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 yada. We can talk about all that. But at the end of the day, the Jaguars had their best unit. Now, this is me saying how they view the team. Their best unit had the ball 3 times in the 4th quarter with an opportunity to win the game, either by score or by multiple touchdowns, and they couldn't get it done. When you go back and look at the tape, that'd be the million-dollar question that Doug Peterson and his staff will have to answer. Why couldn't we get it done when we had 3 opportunities to close the door on the Houston Texans? That is where we have to get better. That's the area where we need to attack when we get back on the practice field. Final part, when it comes to failing to finish, I'll just say missed opportunities. Some of this will fall back on Trevor. Christian Kirk wide open on a deep over early in the game. Wide open. Could have walked into the end zone. Misfire. Brian Thomas Jr. runs a double move down the left sideline where he's created space, and it's a layup if you kind of teardrop it in. Didn't get it done. One of the things that separates the great quarterbacks from the good quarterbacks is whenever they hit the lotto, they cash in the ticket. If a team blows a coverage, if a team allows a wide receiver to slip past the deepest defender, Tom Brady and those guys never missed. They cashed the lottery ticket in over and over and over again. Unfortunately for us, we haven't been able to cash that lottery ticket. And until we cash those lottery tickets consistently, the Jaguars will never be like one of those heavyweights in the AFC because the heavyweights punish you for your mistakes. Right now, the Jags haven't done that. But overall, I'm going to say this, and no one is into more victories and that stuff. But look, man, the team played well enough to win. They have to score more points. They haven't done a good job with that. They just have to find a way to win. The fallout from it, look, man, Doug Peterson is catching some heat. He was upset on Sunday when I did the post-game interview. Couldn't really get anything out of him because he was still fuming from the loss and some of the interactions with media members. Some of that's understandable. Other parts of that is, hey, man, you got to man up. You got to handle it. When you look at the great coaches of the world, man, they stand up, they take the bullets, and then they focus on getting their team better. He can do a better job of that. And I will say this, if we asked him, we brought him on the show, I'm sure he would acknowledge that, hey, I can be a better leader. I can't allow my emotions to show. I can't let the team see me upset at the results. I got to continue to coach my team and coach them to the standard and coach them to being better than the standard each and every day. Hopefully he can get back on track and do that. But let's talk about the team and let's talk about the quarter mark. And before we talk about where we are when it comes to the quarter poll, let's just kind of talk about Doug Peterson and some of the conversation that has come out. So the conversation has started to come out, like the buzz, the vultures are out swarming and circling around Peterson and this job because, look, last 10 games, the team is 1-9. There's this feeling that we're in this rut and we can't get out. And so there become these questions that have popped up. Is he the guy that can solve the issue. Here's what I'm going to say, and I know some of us don't want to hear this. We got to be careful what we wish for, and we got to be really, really careful that we don't prematurely pull the plug on a program that eventually is going to be a good program. When I go back and I look at the history of the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think that this is a franchise that has not had winning seasons prior to the last 2 years since 2004, 2005. There's been a lot of losing in Jacksonville. If we're talking about, it's been 20 years since the team has had back-to-back winning season. Doug Peterson just had back-to-back winning seasons. Say what it is, 9-8, whatever. They're back-to-back winning seasons. He's 2+ years into his tenure in Jacksonville. Yes, his record right now is upside down at 18-20. He is reeling from a 1-9 stretch over the last 10 games. But Doug Peterson did something that a lot of coaches have come in and have not been able to do. Back-to-back winning season and register a playoff win. He's done that. So before we can think about moving on, what you want to do is, hey man, let's look at the team. Let's figure out what are the issues behind why the team is losing. Is it coaching? Is it scheme? Is it players? When you go back and you break down each and every one of the games, you have to ask yourself, is that the coaches give them the best plan to be successful? Are the players good enough to be able to be successful? Or do we just need to move on and kind of figure out a different way to build the squad, but the tactics? Are the strategies and all those things correct? When I go and I look at this team, I think it's important to know that even though the Jags are 0-4, 3 of their losses have been by a combined 12 points. 12 points. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about 3 losses, 12 points. So you want to make sure that you keep everything in perspective. This team has been close enough to win it. They, for whatever reason, haven't got it done. 12 points is all that separates this team from winning 3 games. The blowout in Buffalo was looking embarrassing, didn't play well. Hats off to them, give them credit. But in those other 3 games, 12 total points. Most of the issues have been what I would call missed opportunities. Man, if we could go and look at the tape collectively as a group, if I brought all y'all into the film room, we sat there and we studied it, man, we would be uncomfortable at the number of mistakes that are on the field that cost this team points, whether it's misfires, whether it's drops, whether it's turnovers, or just a missed block here or there. Tons of points have been left. Poor execution at key moments also is a part of what is going on, particularly with this offense. And when I mean poor execution in key moments, look, man, we're judged in those high pressure situations. So from an offensive standpoint, what are the high pressure situations? 3rd down, 4th down, red zone, 2-minute. How does this team perform in each of those areas? That will let you know if you have a team that is average, good, or great. When I look at what we've done, hasn't been good enough. Not good on 4th and short. Man, how many times have we fallen short on 3rd or 4th down and short when we go for it? Not great. Red zone efficiency has also not been great because no one respects the run game. So that's problematic. Big play chances, plenty of big play opportunities, but just haven't converted them. This is the league that lives on splash plays, big plays, explosive plays. Hardest thing to do is to drive the length of the field 10 more plays against these elite NFL defenses. So you got to manufacture some big plays to be able to do it. But when I look at the team offensively, I thought coming into the year, the offense would be the strength. It has been underwhelming, to say the least. And when I mean underwhelming, probably one of the more disappointing units that we have seen, not only as Jacksonville people, but like in the league right now. I read these numbers and they're staggering. Team averages 15 points per game. 3rd fewest total. Third lowest total in the National Football League. So 30th in scoring. Not great. 285.5 yards of offense per game. That's 26 in the league. 159.3 pass yards per game. 4th worst in the league. When we think about the things that we're talking about, these things end up being directly related to the quarterback. If you can't score points, if you can't put yards up, if you're only getting 159 passing yards per game in particular, there's something going on. And some of that stems with the quarterback, particularly when we talk about a quarterback that is going to be making $55 million annually. Got to have better production in play. Is it all on 16? No. But he ends up being a big part of it because he has the ball in his hand every play. And at some point, he has to get sick and tired of being sick and tired of dealing with being the guy that is blamed for the team's issues as opposed to being a part of the solution. The other part is the weapons. The weapons on the perimeter have not played up to snuff, despite being regarded as what we call a stellar supporting cast. So let's go through the weapons that we expected to see play at a high level. This offense is supposed to run through two guys. Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram are supposed to be the main guys. Big free agent acquisition, Christian Kirk finally came on and the light popped on against the Texans. Evan Ingram, another big money free agent that you resigned to more big money. He's been hurt. It's the last couple of games with a hamstring injury. Brian Thomas Jr. has been a bright spot. First round pick. I mean, he's already exceeded expectations early. Looks like he got the goods. The combination of those three, 7, 17, 13, problematic for opponents. Trevor Etienne, flashing, like to see more, but it's beginning to kind of find his way. Produces some big plays on the perimeter. Want to keep him and Tank Bigsby going. When they are doing it as a group, a duo, problematic for the defense. They want to continue to build on that. O-line, high expectations for the O-line because it kept the band together. Offensive line hasn't delivered. Play better against the Texans, but really, man, Cam Robinson, Anton Harrison, Brandon Scherf, all those guys have struggled up front. Guys that are playing with Ezra Cleveland, Mitch Morse, they played well enough to win, but the veteran three that we had high hopes on, haven't played well. There's time for them to turn it on and get better. Maybe this would be get right when you think about not only the coach, but going overseas and kind of having that bonding time. Maybe that'll help this unit get right, but it hasn't been great. Last thing, but maybe the most important thing, the play calling. There's a huge controversy coming into the year. Shah Khan reportedly wanted Doug Peterson to call the plays. Doug's very comfortable with Press Taylor calling the plays. They talk about, look, it's a yin and a yang. They float in and float out in terms of who's calling, who's not. So who knows who's really fully calling it. The one thing that we do know is it's been a standoff between Doug Peterson and the press in terms of who is going to call the plays. When you get that kind of standoff, to me, it strikes me as like, hey, the owner's going to make you do it. So you need to either get on board and do it or not, but you need to do it. So when we look at the issues, underwhelming points, yards, passing yards per game, weapons haven't consistently shown up, even though they were signs of life in week 4. O-line has to get better. Signs of life in week 4, continue to get better. Quarterback really, really struggling. You're going to have to figure that one on his own because like 50-something% completion rate, that's not going to be good enough. It's not going to be good enough to get it done. So that's a look at the offense. After this break, we'll talk about the defense. All right, so let's talk about the defense. Ryan Nielsen, who I think is an outstanding teacher. And I'm going to say this, man, I just think he's great at what he does in terms of teaching, communicating, and those things. Look, there's the persona, the personality can rub maybe some guys the wrong way, but from afar, I can ignore that and look at he and a collection of teachers doing a really good job with a young defense. When I look at signs of growth from this defense, I think about the young players that have been thrust into prominent roles, probably being counted on before we even could think about those guys, not only making the team, but being rotation players. Let's think about the young guys that play. Man, Buster Brown's been fantastic. Great. He has done it. Jarian Jones has stepped in right away and been really, really good, playing nickel, doing things, handling in his business, holding his own. Ventrell Miller having an opportunity to play. Man, dude was all over the field to the point. I don't know what we do when those other guys come back. Devin Lloyd and Fourier Louis, how can we keep him down when he already appears to have some of that heart and soul ability that you want? Gotta like it. Think about the scheme. All right, so this scheme was supposed to be one that was going to be man heavy. They're going to flash some zone in, but this was a man-to-man, mano-a-mano defense. To be able to do that, what you're saying is I can coach my guys better than your guys, and we're going to answer all the tricks that you can throw out because we're going to play man-to-man and do it. with the exception of the Buffalo Bills game, they have been great in the back end playing man-to-man coverage. Did a really good job against Miami. Yeah, you leaked one. Tyreek Hill got over the top, but he gets over the top of everybody. Played well in that game. Played well in other games against Cleveland. Locked up, choked him out, snuffed him out. Nothing available on the perimeter. Got that done. Buffalo was a disaster. Disaster on primetime, whatever. But coming all the way back. Played more zone against the Texans, but when they had to, they played man-to-man and got sticky. So we can look at Nico Collins' stat line, but look at how they played everybody else and how it was part of a bigger picture thing to help the team win by playing a little more bend but don't break. When I look at some of the critical stats, some of this is skewed. It's skewed by the big loss to Buffalo, but rushing yards per game, they're giving up 107.3. That's 10th best in the National Football League. When you hear Ryan Nielsen talk, first thing he said, got to stop the run. Got to stop the run to give yourself a chance to play great defense. So they're stopping the run. The issues that the Jaguars are having right now, Buffalo hung 47 on them, so it messes up what looks like a solid points per game average, 27.3, not good enough. But when you go and you look through, they've been keeping people under 24 with the exception of the Buffalo Bills. Typically, that'll get you enough to win. As you get closer to 17, that's the winning formula. They can work on that. Jazz can work on that to make that better. Really concerning area, 0 defensive takeaways. Just haven't got the ball, man. Haven't been able to take away the ball. The fact that they were able to get 5 straight stops against the Houston Texans without a turnover, testament to the team being tough enough to be able to hang in there and can execute the calls and do exactly what the coaches wanted to do. So the takeaways have to improve the turnovers. You got to win the turnover battle, got to win it by a significant margin to be really good. Issues that I'm seeing from the defense, communication issues where they're early, you're a man-to-man team. You got to make sure everyone knows who their man is, got to point them out, got to identify them, got to stay with them. No switching, none of that other stuff. Like your man is your man. So you got to work through the difficult stuff to make sure that you cover your man. They do that, won't be an issue. Pass rush. Outside of Josh Allen, man, it's been non-existent. Trayvon Walker had 2 a game early, but it hasn't been consistent. Eric Armstead, a lot of activity. Haven't been able to get the fish in the boat. Haven't been able to kind of get guys down. Defensive tackles, none of the defensive tackles have really emerged as an interior pass rushing presence. That means Eric Armstead or Trayvon Walker, they're going to eventually have to go inside and do some of the dirty work on the run and passing game from the interior spot. This is a unit that has to continue to get better. They can continue to gel. There's a lot of positives about what they're doing with the young guys. When the old guys return, you got to hold them. You got to fold them into the group, but you also got to hold everybody accountable. When I look at this team and where they are, look, man, commitment, accountability, and trust. Those are the traits that you have to be a great team. Everyone has to be committed. When I see this team and I talk to people, they talk about how hard they work. So that commitment's not an issue. The accountability is you got to count on your players to make the plays that are there to be made. Right now, we're not getting enough of that part of the accountability piece. And because we don't have that, we may not have full buy-in or trust. When we get those things right, commitment, accountability, and trust, that's when this team will go to the next level. So what are the next steps? Well, here's what we have. NFL teams break the season up into quarters. I talked about that. Right now, we're off the pace because we're 0-4 in the first quarter of the season. The way that you get back into it is you got to have a great effort over the second quarter of the season to maybe get back even if possible. So if you go 0-4, then you take your next 4 games, you go 4-0. Well, now you're right at 500 and you still are in the mix when we talk about the dash for the cash, which is all that you want to be. But realistically, Indianapolis, New England, Chicago, you got 3 of those games coming up. If you're the Jaguars, no matter what your record is, you should feel good about each of those 3 games. If you win those 3 games, now you're kind of in the conversation. You're back in the mix. You're feeling better, and you can do some things. So it's really important that now as we go through and we talk about it, Doug Peterson and his staff continue to build upon the things they did last week because there were really some good things last week. Offensively, I say you can add a little tempo, go a little faster, let the quarterback have a little more control. When they go fast and play fast, he tends to play better. So that's positive. Wear the opponent down, control it, dictate the terms, do all those other things. They do that offensively, man, you're good. Defensively, you continue to expand your package. You were so man-heavy early. You got all the exotic, trick-em-dick-em man beaters that hurt you. But now that you've seen them all, there are only so many ways that people can attack. You just got to understand. You got to be on your P's and Q's, got to line up, got to have an answer for empty formation, how you want to play that when you're man-to-man, all that other stuff. But defensively, they're on schedule. Got to find another pass rush to help Josh Allen. Defensively, you're on the right track. Offensively, that's the unit that has to go. If you fix the offense, Press Taylor, Doug Peterson, whoever's calling plays, they fix that part of it. This team has an opportunity still to get back in the hunt, to get to 500 by the time you get to the last 6 games to dash for the cash and give yourself a chance and opportunity. Now, I am a guy that is eternally optimistic. I always see the glass as half full instead of half empty. I Bleav they can get this done. But the only way they can get this done is they got to win one play at a time. They got to win the game one quarter at a time. And then they got to finish the game in the fourth quarter. If they do that, Jaguars will turn around and they will be in the conversation when we get down the stretch, which is all we can hope for at this moment. So that's the podcast today. I'm Bucky Brooks, Bleav in Jaguars. Make sure you check out all the cool stuff that we're doing on the Bleav Network. Check out the stuff that we have popping on YouTube, on football. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Doing some cool crossover pods later in the week with some of the opponents that we have. Did one last week with the Houston Texans, Cecil Shorts and Patrick Creighton. Check that out. Done previous ones with the Dog Pound and all that. So look, it's going to be more of this stuff popping, more crossover appeal. We're trying to really expand and grow the community. Make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend. Really trying to take this podcast to the next level. Until next time, I'm Bucky Brooks, and I'm out.